عظيم هو السامي لدين عظيم هو السامي فخور بإسلامي
My name is Mariam Njoroge. You can call me Maureen. It's fine by me. So I'm going to deal with optimal political leadership and devolution. For us to do this, we have to understand what we are talking about, right? Let's do a bit of basic explanation. When we say optimal political leadership, what are we talking about? We're talking about actively being involved in politics, not just as voters. You know, when we say get involved in politics, first thing you think is to go vote. But then you should also think in terms of being a leader, being an advisor, being a decision maker, because if you refuse to do this, then you're failing in your obligation, as you're going to see as we continue. Okay? Some response. Okay? Thank you. So, when we're talking about optimal political leadership, we are also talking about preparing and supporting and electing Muslim leaders who understand and represent the needs and values and interests of the Muslim Ummah, while being just, inclusive, and visionary. And there's a problem with where people believe, or people tend to think, that leadership is haram. But leadership is amana. It is trust that has been put upon us, so that provided it is done in the correct way, provided it's done in a way that is not corrupt. So let us, when we talk about how we are going to optimize political leadership, we have steps by which were shown by the Prophet, peace be upon him. And one of the ways that he did it was through shura, or consultation. The Quran the Quran in chapter 42 verse 38 says they conduct their affairs by mutual consultation. So Islamic politics is people-centered. It is not centralized. You find that you have to go to the people, seek what they want, and then by then you can make your decisions. Because communities must demand transparency and collective input. And the second way through which he did it was accountability. Because the Quran in Surah Al-Nisa tells us, indeed Allah commands you to render trust to whom they are due. Because leadership is not just a privilege. It's not, you've not been privileged to be in a place of power. This is a place where you have been entrusted to do good and to help the people who are below you. Muslims must hold leaders accountable and model trustworthiness in their power. And then the third thing that we have to consider is ethical and visionary leadership. We have a hadith that says, each of you is a shepherd, and each of you is responsible for his flock. Now our leaders are our shepherds, responsible before Allah for their people. And these public roles that they have taken should be filled by those with character, competence, and care. These are the characteristics that we're looking for in a leader, someone with character, competence, and care. Then we go to advocacy for Muslim interests, where we are told that it is an obligation to defend the Ummah through governance rooted in justice. Because without the Muslim voices in policy spaces, our values are sidelined, because there is no one to speak up to you. And that is why we come to say, what does it look like to engage in optimal political leadership? It looks like mentoring Muslims. It looks like uniting Muslim votes, so that you can vote for someone who is competent, God-fearing. And then you hold Muslim leaders accountable. Once they are elected, you ask them, did you do what we want to, what you were sent to do? Because if you fail to support these capable leaders, then you are neglecting your duty to protect the Ummah's interest. The last thing that we have is strategic influence. And on this we have Hilf al-Fudul, which refers to a strategic pre-Islamic alliance that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, participated and later affirmed in Makkah. In a modern setup, Muslim leaders can participate in political parties and coalitions in a way of bargaining for proper return of their affairs of the Ummah and amplifying their political power. Muslims must build alliances to champion moral and social issues. And at that, I think we've to optimal political leadership, let us get into devolution. When you talk about devolution, basically you are talking about power and resources being distributed to the people, where they are no longer being controlled by the national government, and now you have them being controlled by the county government, where the county government has power to budget, develop, educate, where they are making decisions on education, health, and infrastructure. And why is this important? You're going to find out that if you do not live in a county that is Islamic majority, for example, where I come from, you're going to find out we suffer out from inadequate prayer facilities in public institutions, either in hospitals, in schools, lack of access to halal food in public institutions such as hospitals, correctional facilities. We have limited access to Islamic religious education, and discrimination and stereotyping. For sisters, when you go to the airport, when they do your usual scans and they do it more than they should, please remember to carry something pink. I don't know what effect it does, but somehow it distracts them. So yeah, with that, how does it help? So once you are taking civic education, or once you decide to participate in devolution, you find out that you're giving, or you are able to fund for madrasa. You're able to you have access to proper and clean Muslim burial grounds, which are a problem if you live in a county that is not Muslim dominated. You also get to have the respect for the Islamic dress code and prayer timing in schools. For example, if your uni is not an Islamic uni, you get that during Dhuhr time you have a class, or during Asr time class, and now you have to decide whether you're going to be late for class or you're going to go for prayer. Now, if you are at a point where we are engaging in civic, or at a point where we are taking part in devolution, then we are able to champion for such things, where you now have time that is allocated for you, or you tend to see that they are going to allow you to go out for your prayers without allocating class at that specific time. Also, we are going to have protection of Muslim majority neighborhoods. For example, tell me a county that is a Muslim majority. Garissa. Now give me a county that is marginalized and oppressed. Exactly. You tend to see that most of the majority Muslim neighborhoods are marginalized, and until you speak up, then these counties are going to continue being marginalized. So let us, how are we going to do it when we come to devolution? Number one, localized resource stewardship. Muslims must demand for their fair share of county budgets. Without our input, public funds are often misallocated or abused. The second thing that we're going to do is Islamic service delivery, where Islamic governance will protect religion, life, intellect, lineage, and wealth. We must lobby for services such as education, health, and security that is going to reflect these values. Number three is the representation in county leadership. The best of your leaders are those whom you love and they love you. Muslim candidates must be competent, supported, and value-driven. So civic training and voter mobilization is crucial for this process. The second last thing that we're going to push for is moral infrastructure and via local funds. Only those of, the Quran tells us in chapter 9 verse 18, Surah 9 verse 18, only those of you that believe in Allah maintain his mosques. Building more mosques and Islamic schools and community centers is our obligation as Muslims. We should be able to demand for county bursaries and fund to go towards the dawah and youth leaders. The last thing that we are able to do as Muslims is to combat marginalization. As we've said, you find that most of the majority Muslim neighborhoods are marginalized and oppressed. Muslims must show up in public participations, hearings, barazas, and county planning. And I know it's a trend to look nonchalant and non-engaging. So I don't think looking nonchalant in this case is very helpful. You have to go there, speak up. I know social media has told you not to be a Karen, but at this point, this is when you're required to be a Karen, to speak up for the Muslim Ummah. That is all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
فخور بإسلامي فمنه